I would like to start with the second session this morning, and we will start off with the perspective of the EU trade associations. Rick Clayton.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to give a few slides now from the perspective of Animal Health Europe and EGGVP. This is the list of topics within the presentation, and I hope it will be made available to you afterwards so that you can use it for a reference for our thinking. But don't worry too much about skipping through this too quickly, because I don't think there's very much in here that you have not heard before. Of course, the challenges facing industry are very much the same as the challenges facing the authorities. But first, I can tell you that Animal Health Europe has just updated its position paper and thinking on this, and there are 5 key topics within this short paper, and they are on the screen now for you. Let's take them in reverse order, just to mix it up a bit. Maintaining talent. I think citizens' rights is possibly the one topic that has been discussed the most, certainly in the media, and we are hearing very good noises around citizens' rights, so I think that point is well covered already. We think it would be a great shame if the UK could not remain linked in the EU surveillance systems, although what we're hearing in the feedback from the EU institutions is this is looking increasingly unlikely, but that will be a great shame. Trade agreement is probably the area of biggest unknown to us at the moment. The talks won't really start until after the exit, so this is a big question mark. Of course, being an industry association, our main interest is in minimising the costs and delays caused by to trade caused by exit. The top 2 points are the 2 that I'm going to focus on the most, particularly at the request of EGGVP, who helped with the preparation of this. So on this slide, let's look at those 2 points there. And I've given you the sort of political climate, if you like, in those boxes on the left. So first of all, the top quote comes from Prime Minister May at her Mansion House speech on the 2nd of March, where she specifically mentioned the European Medicines Agency and the wish for the UK to stay aligned and closely work with them. They even used the word associate member. This, of course, is industry's wish. We want as little disruption as possible. We would like the UK to stay very connected to the EU regulatory network. Unfortunately, the sound bites that we get back from the Commission do not give us a lot of hope on the way forward. The Animal Health Europe team met with Barnier's team, the Article 50 task force team, and in the blue box you can see some of the statements that Animal Health Europe was met with. No way, mutual recognition not possible in a free trade agreement, and the UK could only really stay connected in the EU regulatory network if it became a member of EEA. And I think we know these things are politically not on the cards at the moment. The other main issue for us is the need for a transition period. We've heard about the political agreement to have this 21-month transition period to the end of December 2019. But that is not a given. The third quote on the screen there, we've already heard again this morning, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. The withdrawal agreement has to be agreed by both the UK Parliament and the European institutions, and that will take several months. And it is not expected to be agreed until the 12th hour, 11th hour, maybe February next year. So you've heard the big message this morning. You cannot rely on this transition period. But that's, for industry, that's not really the whole story. Not only do we need this transition period, we need longer transition periods to put into place everything you've seen on the screen up to this point. If I'm being totally frank, and I often am, it's not going to happen by the deadline, and possibly not even during the transition period. There is just too much to do. So I think the main message to industry from the authorities is get on with it, and I think that message is well heard. And perhaps the main message coming back is we are, but it's probably not going to be possible to achieve everything within the timelines we're looking at. So now, this is now where I rush forward. I just wanted to dwell on those 2 points. This is a point of interest. So our national association, NOAA, did its Brexit Barometer. They've done 2 during the course of 2017. So Animal Health Europe, inspired by this, did its own Brexit Barometer at the beginning of this year. 2 points are on the screen. A point of most concern, so where problems might be expected, and that's bringing products to the market in the UK, the impact on trade in the UK, and post-licensing controls. The areas where there was more optimism, where no problems are expected, I can't read the screen myself, I'm going to have to read it from my notes. R&D in the animal health sector, public health and food production, animal health and welfare. And I'm going to give you one diagram taken from the Brexit Barometer because I think it's quite interesting. If you asked, when we asked the companies, how do you feel about bringing a product to market in Europe, there was a great deal of optimism, basically no change, so that's fine. But when we asked them about how do you feel about bringing a product to market in the UK, there was a significant amount of pessimism. And I think that's really only related to delays to market. So I think UK may expect to be a second in line from now on. A point I'm often asked is the timing of the new regulation and withdrawal. The new regulation, we hope, will be adopted very early next year, so just before the withdrawal, but it won't be applicable until 3 years later. That's the current proposal. The UK withdrawal bill, which will download all the EU legislation on the 29th of March, but the wording of that bill talks about only legislation that is applicable on the 29th of March, so that discounts the new EU regulation. So there, of course, you then have risk of divergence post-Brexit, but also opportunity perhaps for UK to adapt to its national situation. Certainly the UK businesses will be looking for opportunities outside of this. There is going to be a great deal of impact on much of our business environment, particularly manufacturing, but also don't forget about things like keeping talent, R&D, access to scientists. Also, what will be the impact on veterinary services in the UK? We know there are a great number of EU nationals serving as vets in the UK, and they are already leaving. Impact on R&D, I won't cover, but there could potentially be an impact there, as I've described. We know there will be an impact on trade. even if there are no tariffs, there's going to be more documentation, more delays, more border controls, unknown costs. The trade deal, complete unknown. People have asked about what will happen to the land bridge for exports to Ireland. I wouldn't anticipate any problems there because we already have land bridges to different EU countries, like to Turkey from, to Greece through the Balkans, for example. Manufacturing is probably one of the biggest areas of impact, and we've heard quite a bit about that today, so I don't think I need to spend any time on that. And of course there'll be impact on projects, particularly on regulatory activities in getting everything rearranged. It's going to be interesting to see how the UK handles authorisations post-Brexit. We know the UK wants to stay very aligned to the EU, but they do have other options. I mean, it's quite pertinent that the Commonwealth is very much in the news this week. Will the UK look to other English-speaking nations and re-energise its international relations there, particularly perhaps with the VICH partners, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, etc. One interesting thought is access to scientists for novel therapies. There'll be other costs of doing business as well, the pharmacovigilance and QPPV we've heard about this morning, and access to IT systems. So, Chair, I come to my conclusions now. I hope I wasn't too long. The main area of concern is uncertainty for business, and that's been made clear this morning. There is no real clarity on the final trade arrangement, certainly. It's becoming clearer the impact, the regulatory impact, and that's our main focus here today. So the big message is plan for the hard exit. But there's also optimism within the industry. It's our job to be optimistic and look for opportunities. And certainly within the UK businesses, that's what will be happening. And we look to see how the UK plans its regulatory setup now and its extended regulatory network, because UK will be on its own and it will need partners. This is the big strength of Europe. It's a larger market. So the UK will need to look to partners to make sure it can bring products to its market as well. So thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much, Rick, for this presentation. I think you've positioned the position of the industry clearly on behalf of Animal Health Europe and EGGVP. I would now like to give the floor for the second presentation by Declan O'Brien on behalf of the Association of Veterinary Consultants.
First off, thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of the Association of Veterinary Consultants. Apologies for my voice this morning. I would like to say that we agree entirely with what Rick has put forward. We decided to put forward the case for the SMEs in this discussion as well. We've heard this morning from the Commission that we have got the Article 50 guidelines, that we've heard that it's EA minus, Canada plus, and we have heard that there was the EMA guidance back in May 17. And Rick has referred to uncertainty, and he's correct. But I would contend we were always going to be here at this stage. If you actually read the details of the Article 50 guidelines, this was always going to be uncertain times. The negotiations may have been delayed, but if they the signing of the various agreements may be delayed. But if they had signed them last October, we still would have been in uncertain periods at this stage. And we still actually would have had the guidance, you've got to change, guys. There is no choice. That is the realistic position on this. There's no leeway. You will be a third country. and that is it. So in a certain sense, that is part of the problem with the uncertainty on this. And I suppose if I look at it, we're dealing with a document that the Commission drafted. They drafted on behalf of the Member States, and that dictates where we are today. If you look at it from the point of view of the SMEs, and we've heard this morning, unfortunately there is differentiations in the messages we get. The UK position is the negotiation is to take place. The Commission's position is, well, yes, it will take place, but we don't know what will come out of it. The UK position tends to be, and you get it in quotes, is we don't see ourselves as a third country, we see ourselves above a third country, better than this, etc. And Rick referred to these political statements as well. We always get this take back control statement, which also causes problems. But I think one of the things that the SMEs face is the statements that come out. And this is a statement from the Commissioner, Irish Commissioner, unfortunately. And actually, the first part of this statement is actually factually correct. It's what we've talked about this morning. It's actually that, the UK has restricted what it wants to do and it's narrowed its options down, etc. For me, I think the problem is the second part of the statement gives everybody hope. Because the second part of the statement says, hopefully we'll be able to see some flexibility and come to an agreement. So therefore, we're in a situation that I accept what's been said this morning. The Commission is saying here where we are, but actually the message that's coming out of the Commission is, hey, we might get an agreement and it might be something different. So if you take this to the stage of SMEs, I would say they're in total frustration because they're not actually sure what to do. Most SMEs, if you look at it, aren't in the beneficial position of sort of some of the members of Rick's association, where they actually have affiliate offices in other member countries. They probably have set up, like some of the ones I work with, have set an office up in the UK because that's where EMA is. They're now looking at the costs of trying to set up a new office somewhere else in Europe. That increased cost. They have to decide where they're going to go. It may not be the Netherlands. But the longer they can push that out, the longer they will. And because they get these messages, it unfortunately tends to be, which the Commission said this morning, is they tend to take the wait and see approach because this is a big cost for them. This isn't cheap to make this change. The other thing that the SMEs are now facing that has come up recently is if we do take the view of third country, we're going to face increased workload. Third country will mean that these SMEs will have to double report pharmacovigilance reports. The access to EV-Vet will not occur. And talking to the IT project managers in the VMD, they see issues at EV-Vet and they're going to develop a more blunderbuster new system, but there will be no way of these two systems talking to each other. So in a certain sense, we're facing increased workload. So in a certain sense, I suppose the message from the SMEs is frustration because there is no clarity for them in the sense they will rely on political statements as well as the statements that we've heard this morning. They're facing increased costs and increased workloads. And I suppose from their point of view, there was a mention of help there, but that's with regard to licenses and stuff like that. And it does concern me that the Commission over the years has said that the SMEs are the lifeblood of Europe, and they actually seem to be left behind. Thank you.